Hey guys,
Good. There's a lot of them.
there's a lot. We are here live with Dr. Molly King in Plymouth, Minnesota, suburb of Minneapolis. You just told me. I would have had no idea about that. So I'm out here in Superior, Colorado, in between Denver and Boulder, and this is Bono Stuff. And if you haven't already, like, share, subscribe, all that stuff, wherever you're watching, listening, all that good stuff, blah, 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 boop, boop, boop. I'll get better at that one day, probably not. I'm going to share that, I think we just kind of connected on Facebook, and then I saw that you were the brains and the brawn, as you said, behind FreeMVMT. Do you pronounce it Free Movement?
Yep, we do.
Okay, so yeah, and if you guys haven't checked that account out, feel free to either click off here or get another device if you have one and go check it out, because and I've reposted that stuff many times, not knowing who was behind it. And here we are. We found Molly, Dr. Molly. And yeah, it's one of my favorite accounts in terms of, I think I told her, for the last few years, again, there's a lot of frustration for people like me in the physical therapy space who we have our doctorates. And I've kind of had to, as I tell people, shy away from even using the term physical therapy because it's so popularized as heat, electrical stim, a little bit of massage, maybe some yellow therabands. And yeah, you can see if you're watching the frustration on Molly's face. And it's so frustrating. And so for a long time, the other component of that is people who end up coming to me much later in their journey of an injury, and they went to see their orthopedist or their general practitioner. They got x-rays, they got MRIs, they did all these things. And, you know, one of those things is like, hey, if you come to see a physical therapist first, like, we know what we're doing. We can show you what you need to do. And if it's really bad, we can say, yeah, you do need to go get an x-ray or an MRI. And I was actually very happy to find out here in Colorado, I can order imaging. My previous two states, yeah.
Lucky you.
My previous two states, New York and California, much more restrictive. It sounds like Minnesota's not super open with all that. Yeah, no. I can apparently, and this is the first state I've lived in and practiced in that I can actually do dry needling. The two of the other ones, New York and California, have blocks on that. Thank you, acupuncture lobby or whoever else is behind all that. But anyway, we're talking some deep problems here. So I'm going to stop rambling and just, again, say that some of those posts that, again, you'll see on her channel are like, go see, you know, PT first before, if you have an ankle sprain, and that's going to, on average, save you $1,400 versus going through the normal process that most people know and are familiar with. So any who's it's, let's maybe jump over right to you had it as your third one. I don't know if it's kind of jumping ahead.
Doesn't matter. Doesn't
Tell
matter.
us what inspired you to do it. I'm sure it takes a lot of time, effort, energy to do that. But tell us about the inspiration there, and I love it. So tell us.
Yeah. So just about 2 years ago, our 2-year birthday for Free Movement is next Monday, May 9th. So we're super excited about that. But my boss and I had been talking about some of the issues with spreading awareness for physical therapy and what we can do and how do we connect directly with the patient in a way that makes sense to them. And we were really struggling with that. And we talked about it for a long time. Oh, we're going to start an Instagram. We're going to start an Instagram. And finally, one day, we're just like, how about today? And so Free Movement was born. And we just started out with the goals of providing information about physical therapy and how it can help them directly to patients. That's our first goal. Then also teaching other healthcare providers about how we can help their patients. And then providing physical therapists with the resources to do the same within their own practice. So that was kind of the idea behind Free Movement. And over time, it's kind of evolved. We have let our followers kind of help guide us in what we focus on. I'll have people reach out to me all the time saying, hey, can you do a post on tennis elbow or something like that, because I'm seeing a lot of this in my practice and I need to be able to communicate this to my current patients and people in the general population who may become my patients. We also throw some funny stuff in there, a few memes and that kind of thing, but it's been really fun and we enjoy the journey it's taken us on.
Yeah, and again, like I don't know, I didn't look at like all your numbers or whatever, but I just think it's important that we do just continue to spread these messages, because it really is frustrating. And again, it's at the end of the day. So I'll over stereotype. I'll go ahead and take the reins on that one and say, again, physical therapists for the most part get into the profession because they genuinely just want to help people feel better and like help them get out of pain. And rehab is the traditional kind of concept, and the profession was born out of extra or lack of nurses in World War I, and you know, like, hey, we need to help these people fix their injuries. So there's definitely some of that. And whereas, you know, again, I had a really good chiropractor on a few episodes ago out here. We got to do one in person, but yeah. So, but at the same time, I'll stick with the stereotype that chiropractors tend to be a little more entrepreneurial, and they tend to go quickly into running their own business and things like that. That's not necessarily a bad thing, but they kind of there's that interesting paradigm of they're a little outside the system, and again, without going down too many political rabbit holes, if you will, we'll just say again the fact that PTs don't get a lot of marketing, right? And now there's these crops that we've been talking about. If you're anywhere on the PT Twitter space, this cash-based term, and there's all these masterminds around, hey, you know what, the services you offer are very important, and how do we get them to better serve a wider population? So if you're focusing, and a lot of it is niching down, and so I don't know when we'll ever be able to get to a point where PTs might be the first line of actual defense for something like back pain or an ankle sprain or tennis elbow, like you said. And I don't know if you feel like even in the 2 years that you've started this account, if you feel like there's been some progress that you've seen, or is it just we're fighting this incredibly uphill battle and like, you know, just, I guess, yeah, I don't know if you can comment on the grandiosity of all that.
Absolutely. I think we are fighting a huge uphill battle. Being the frontline provider for orthopedic pain and injury, neurological issues, that kind of thing. We're fighting against this huge corporate healthcare system that has physicians at the top for literally everything. And, you know, I've had people who have come in with a referral from their podiatrist because they have back pain, but that's the doctor that they see most frequently. And I'm like, what are you seeing a podiatrist for back pain, or something like that, or a cardiologist, that kind of thing. So we are always fighting up the hill of the idea where people think I need to go to my doctor first for everything. My doctor knows it all. When in reality, that's just going to send you through the system. You're going to start with your PCP, who they're fabulous, but they know a little bit about a lot of things. And their goal is to direct them to the more specialized provider, which in the traditional system tends to be, okay, next step is ortho. We get an MRI. And then eventually we end up with the physical therapist anyway. But just getting the general public to see, you know, if you have, you know, insidious onset of back pain, or if you sprain your ankle, you don't need to do all those steps. You can go right to your physical therapist. And that really starts with marketing and educating directly to the general population, to the patients we're already seeing, and to potential patients. Because we can save them a lot of time, pain, and money in the long run if they know to come see us. But that doesn't start within the traditional medical system. That's not going to happen there. It needs to be from the outside, from some of the more independent practitioners, and that kind of thing.
Yeah, and it's been again, I'll share my, I guess, 2 cents on the whole thing. It's been a really interesting thing. I do want to clarify, I guess, real quick, for anyone listening who might not be familiar, direct access is a term in the healthcare space, I guess, that would imply, and it's different state to state. At this point, I believe all 50 states and the District of Columbia all have some form of direct access. And so I think in New York, when I was practicing there, it was, again, if you sprained your ankle, you could come see me. But after 30 days, or I think it was 6 visits or 10 visits, I forget the exact number, then the theory is if you're not getting better, we should send you back to, or refer you out, just because, you know, it's about that control there. So, and every state's a little different. There's unlimited access in some states. So at the end of the day, yeah, I think there's this really interesting push for cash-based PT. I think that the healthcare or insurance is a whole nother concept and topic that we don't. Yeah, and it's frustrating, and again, we can certainly probably gripe about that for an hour or two. But I'll come back to the fact that people, I think the consumer is slowly waking up to these concepts as they do more research. Again, as HSAs and FSAs become more of a popular thing, right? And there's this hopefully healthier or more active or more informed populace out there, and the stuff is getting out there that, hey, you should probably have something in case something, catastrophic happens.
Yep.
You know, the healthcare system's great if you're in a car accident and you end up in the hospital. Like, you probably want to have something. But if you're paying, I don't know, $1,200 a month, family of 3 or something, like, that's a lower end. But it adds up. So the whole concept becoming, hey, have some catastrophic stuff, which is what we have. We have Liberty Health Share between my wife and I, $500 a month. And as of now, they actually just raised that price last year. It was $349 for a couple. But yeah, $500 a month is a lot better. And I actually heard about it originally on some other podcasts. So that's what led me there. So hopefully somebody listening might be like, oh, what's that? And investigate that. And like, I'd rather save some money and not pay ridiculous amounts of insurance that we're going into this crazy system. But then on top of that, saying the things that I actually want to pay for and take care of my health and be proactive about, insurance generally is not going to cover that. If you have it through your job, maybe, great. There might be some other ways. And I had some HR people on a couple other podcasts episodes earlier on where you should be much more aware of what you're capable of doing within your rights as an employee and being able to switch things around. So on top of all that, though, coming back to it is, yeah, I think that hopefully we're seeing this concept. So one of the things you want to talk about is marketing direct to patients. Yep. So again, like for me, that's where my business has shifted of, yeah, let's talk about sleep, nutrition. Let's get you prepared for your physical retirement. Yes. On top of your 401k that, it's great if you have $1 million sitting there when you turn 65 in your bank account. But if you're not physically capable of really utilizing that, what's the point? So, what are we doing to prepare you for your physical retirement? So marketing direct to patients, I think, is a tricky thing. And I guess I'll shift over to this real quick. You mentioned being that frontline provider, right, for health as for something like any musculoskeletal condition where we might be the best equipped in this healthcare system that, again, is just continuing to drain the economy year by year, day by day. So there was a study actually when the pandemic first started. I did a webinar with Evidence in Motion, and there was a study that showed they did. I forget what the sample size was, but they did a bunch of research. And when it comes to first provider you want to go to for low back pain, I think number 1 was the orthopedic surgeon. Number 2 was chiropractors. Number 3 was massage therapists. Number 4 was acupuncturists. And then I think at number 5 was physical therapists. So yeah, again, I don't know, studies like that, educating the public. Yeah, your brand, I guess that's part of the mission that we're talking about here of, is there a way to start? It's popular in, I don't know how many different shows we can reference where they show a physical therapist or they show a chiropractor, even in like a lot of, I grew up with a lot of hip hop and rap and, I'm back like a chiropractor. Like there's those like lines. And so I don't know, I don't know where we start getting, Jay-Z to rap about physical therapy. I don't know. And Kevin Hart went through some interesting physical therapy stuff, but it's like, there's still that image of if you have an injury, maybe a physical therapist at some point will be the one to get you back after you talk to your surgeon. So yeah, I don't know how we continue to push, and maybe we can start calling out some names of like Kelly Starrett's and things like that, the leaders in our field. But I don't know. Sorry, I went on a really long ramble there.
That's okay.
Hand it back to you. I need to say less on these things and ask more questions. So, but yeah, I don't know if there was any question in there, but if you can take that and run with it, that'd be great.
Yeah, for sure. I think part of it is traditionally as physical therapists, we haven't really felt the need to market a whole lot. directly to patients because traditionally we're a part of the insurance-based system. We get almost all of our clients from physicians through the insurance network, et cetera. So we've never had to do that necessarily. We haven't developed that skills. It's not a part of our culture. And so as more PTs step outside of the insurance world, they're starting to realize, oh, this is important and I need to do this. And I can't tell you how many times I've seen on Facebook and, different PT networking where people are like, oh, I just started my own practice. How do I get in with physicians? Blah, blah, blah. And the answer is you don't. 99% of those physicians are a part of a big corporate healthcare scheme where they already have PTs. And, whether they say it or not, there are some financial benefits to keeping all of your patients within that network. And so networking with physicians is never going to work in the private PT world because there are fewer and fewer physicians out there who are still in private practice. Most of them are being bought out and adding into some of these larger healthcare corporations. So it's like what we're so used to, that's probably not going to work in this setting a whole lot. And so we need to totally kind of flip the script and we need to start talking to the people who could become our patients. People spend so much time fighting over patients with chiropractors and massage therapists and physicians and all of that stuff. But in reality, only like 7% of people with musculoskeletal pain or injury seek out care. The whole other 93% are out there. We just need to do a better job of connecting with those people and saying, hey, this type of pain isn't normal. It is not just a part of getting older. There is something that you can do about it, and I can help you. But making sure that message is very patient directed and very specific and gives them the why. Why should you work with me? How can I help you? And have it really kind of hit home with them versus trying to go through physicians, through insurance companies to get those patients.
Yeah. It's a lot to overcome.
It is. It's a culture thing.
Yeah.
Among physical therapists, it's really a culture thing, and I'm excited as I watch these younger, more entrepreneurially minded PTs on social media and that kind of thing. And I think that my generation, we're kind of starting to wake up to the fact that, hey, what PTs did 20 years ago, that's probably not going to work. I mean, it's not necessarily working right now, and it's not going to work for much longer. So we need to start to evolve as a profession and kind of look at new ways to grow and help people.
Yeah, for sure. One thing I'm thinking of, and I don't know if you have this post, but when it comes to that direct marketing of something I struggle with when I have conversations with folks, and the question is always, do you take my insurance? Because that is the standard. If somebody has health insurance, and again, they're paying a lot of money per month, it's a very understandable question of, I'm going to probably, utilize the funds I have and pay less money theoretically. So I don't know if you have this post, or if not, I'm making this public request of a version of like traditional model, right? You have to go through that whole system we were talking about earlier of usually you have to, if it's going to go through insurance, you usually have to go to a physician. They have to write a referral for PT twice a week for 6 weeks or whatever, and eval and treat as the if anyone in the PT space has seen that prescription eval and treat. What does that mean? Why did you need to really even be the one to say that? But beyond that of, hey, how long is it going to take you to go? And now you're going to probably go twice a week for 6 weeks. And even though it's going through insurance, there's copays, there's the time and energy lost. And again, I'm in a few journal clubs and we talk about the research, and the research is a little all over the place, and it's always tricky, and you can find research to kind of prove whatever you want to some extent. But I guess the question is, or if, and again, I don't know if you have this post or some version of that, but looking at over the course of, let's say, low back pain being the most common, over the course of a 6-week low back pain treatment. You have the traditional model, which again is going to cost you this many hours too, which gets lost in those concept of, again, if you come to me, like, I'm going to be able to develop, I don't want to see you that many times, you know, and I'll shout out like Danny Mata, Mata, if you know him, PT entrepreneur, PT Biz. I forget which exact brand he has, but yeah, they do a big thing, and whatchamacallit, they're really good at talking about like, hey, we only need like 3 visits on average, right? Versus the twice a week for 6 weeks, which is 12. So now we're talking about 9 less visits. Let's say it's even 20 minutes, you know, each way. You do the math, you're just saving so much time. And again, one of my things that I've shifted to even before COVID times was a lot of online stuff. So I can send you workouts every day and check in with you. Hey, how's this going? How's this going? Are we on the right track? And I try to check in every single day, which is, I think, you know, trying to be a disruptor in this awful model that we have of here's your 3 exercises, like, you know, hopefully you're doing them. And then a week later, hey, did you do your exercises all week? Sure, maybe, whatever. Where, you know, clinicians who really care want to make sure that you're eating your vegetables, you're doing those exercises. So yeah, I don't know if you have that post of like, I've seen a few out there. They're not super like in your face. I don't know if studies need to be done around that, but yeah. Do you know anything about like those numbers, or is there anything like that?
I do. We do have a post. I'll have to repost it. It's been a while, but we do have a post comparing insurance-based to cash-based physical therapy. And, you know, across the board, it's fewer visits, it costs less, better outcomes. I've got it on a couple of like injury-specific things, but also comparing cash-based to insurance-based PT, and that one got me in a little bit of hot water with some of the insurance-based PTs, and I'm like, I mean, the numbers don't lie. I hate to break it to you, you know, and it's not that insurance-based PT is bad. It serves a very, very necessary role in healthcare for a lot of people. But for people who are looking for something different, that are looking for something more personalized, who want to be more proactive about their health, cash-based PT can be great. The vast majority of my patients who I see, they wouldn't necessarily qualify for insurance-based PT because it's not, you know, they are on the preventative end of the spectrum. They want to move better, feel better, perform better, but they're not injured by insurance-based standards. So they could go to an insurance-based clinic and be charged up to wazoo because they're going to charge them the same amount at their cash rate as they would to an insurance company, because a lot of them don't have like a standardized cash rate, and maybe get what they want, or they can come and see me and be here less often and have a more personalized plan. And when they are here, they get more time with me and a little more just attention. Yeah, it's nothing against insurance-based providers. It serves a great role. But I know that it can be hard when you're in that setting to kind of see the differences in the cash-based world. So
yeah, for sure. So in this non-traditional podcast or live we're doing here, why don't we now go to telling us about the setting you work in, and a little bit about how you work, populations you're currently working with outside of the free movement space.
For sure. So I work in a cash-based physical therapy and athlete development setting. We're called Inspired Athletics, and we're based in Plymouth, Minnesota. So in-house here, we have 2 doctors of physical therapy. We have 3 full-time sport performance coaches. We are adding a certified athletic trainer in 2 weeks. Can't wait for that. And then we also have a couple of sport skill coaches, particularly football, that we work with. And then we refer out for our sports psych and our sports nutrition side of things. We have some good working relationships with other local providers for that. So our goal is to really just provide a very holistic health and fitness experience for athletes and active adults. So I work with a wide variety of people. My youngest patient right now is 10. And my oldest, who I see very occasionally when he is in town visiting his kids is 93 now, I think.
Wow.
So it's a really wide variety. It's a lot of fun, but I would say I focus mostly on middle school through like young adult athletes all the way up to professional. And then again, the active adult who's like maybe 40 plus and is just finding that it takes a little bit more help and maintenance to maintain that healthy lifestyle, or some of them are still very competitive athletes, but they just need a little bit more help and maintenance to stay performing at their peak. Yeah, it's a lot of fun. Absolutely love it. And I love working with a variety of other providers and practitioners in a group setting like this, because it just provides an awesome experience for our patients. If I've got somebody coming back from a rehab, I can go out and talk to their sport performance coach, even during their session with them, and make sure that we're all on the same page and that client is getting the best care possible.
Right. And you mentioned this, there's a psych on staff, right? Psychologist?
So not on staff.
No staff? Okay.
We partner with a firm here in the Twin Cities. So we just refer out for most of that.
Yeah.
But they are excellent and they are a great resource on the sport performance side of things. But I most frequently refer to them after like a major injury, when people are having fear of movement, fear of activity, right, fear of return to competition, that kind of thing. That's where I refer a lot of clients over to them, because I can prove to them that they can do things in the gym and all of that. And there's no, danger of re-injury or anything like that. But if you've got a little bit of a mental block, especially after, a very traumatic and scary injury for a young athlete, they are a huge help on that end of the spectrum.
Mm-hmm. And how much do you guys touch on nutrition, sleep, all those other fun sides of health?
All of that. So we did have a dietitian in-house, and she moved on to another position, but we still refer to her. She is excellent. So all of our clients, when they come in, we start with, basic nutrition for athletes. They get a guidebook, and then through the app that we just had, we can now link it in with MyFitnessPal. We can see their food tracking. We can make suggestions based on that. Nutrient timing, all of that good stuff. That's a huge part of it, because you can be working hard in PT, you can be working hard in the gym, but if you're not supporting it with those very basic things like good food, good sleep, stress management, that kind of thing, it's like building a house on a sandy foundation. It's never going to work. And people don't like to spend time on those things because it's not flashy, it's not sexy. You can't post it on Instagram the way you can your like Max Lift or something like that. But it is the very basics that everything else is built upon.
100%.
Yep.
I can't agree more with you. Again, that's where I've shifted the majority of my work. And I, precision nutrition, and if anyone's not familiar with that, a lot of those aspects of again, setting that foundation for sure. And again, it's all basic stuff, just drink enough water, set your bedroom up, like we call it sleep hygiene, that, it doesn't take a lot. It's little tweaks, but it does take a little bit of that. Here's how we're going to do it. Here's the keys. It's just like 1, 2, 3, boom, boom, boom. But yeah, it's definitely super necessary. And it makes, like, again, I mentioned the financial analogy of the physical retirement plan. This stuff is like, hey, put $100 into a Roth IRA, and compounding interest, that's going to turn into, $5,000, and just by letting the $100 sit there over a few years. Like, why not? It's free money. So it's, leaving performance on the table. Very cool. I'm glad that's all. And so for the record, folks, again, the we don't want to keep picking on the insurance model, but you're probably not going to get a lot of those aspects with the traditional insurance model of PT. Again, like I said, I've moved away from even, I spent over $100,000 on my doctorate in physical therapy. And unfortunately, I've had to kind of move away from that term because, again, it's associated with electric stim, ultrasound, hot packs, things like that. And that's what most people's idea of physical therapy is. And again, it's generally thought like, I'm only going to go there if I have like this injury that probably needs some time. If I have a little back pain, I'm going to go to the chiropractor and get a crack. And that's going to make me feel better. And I'm going to walk out of there, and it doesn't necessarily solve the underlying issue, which is what we're kind of talking about here. But yeah, we're in this society, not to, again, overly pick on folks, but like, I need the quick fix. I need the pill. And I'm not interested in, really solving the thing for the long term. And hopefully, I think COVID, one of the silver linings possibly is that maybe helped some people slow down, helped some people kind of see, it seemed like some people got, the whatever COVID-19 pounds gain versus, picking up some Peloton stock went through the roof. So a lot of people got these $2,500 bikes rather than going to see, Dr. Molly, and spending $2,500 there is probably going to have a lot more ROI in the long term, right? You're going to learn a lot more. I don't know what I'm not going to ask you your prices in this public forum, but but I would imagine even if you're charging, and some top PTs are charging whatever $250 a session. So even if you got 10 sessions, that's a lot of time. That's 10 hours with a PT to learn a lot. And again, a good PT should be teaching you things that, again, even after 2 or 3 sessions, you're probably going to know more about your body than 90-something% of the population. So I think we can't even. I don't even know where we can begin on just the fact. It sounds like we get a lot. We have a very similar philosophy on a lot of these concepts. I'm curious. Again, it sounds like you might even you're really deep into that space. Do you think that there's any changing insurance companies, like have you guys just given up and like you're just cash based, or do you still think that there's some ways to communicate and on a big picture say, hey, like, you guys are doing this wrong, here's some different ways that, based on the research, based on how we're practicing, is there anything like that? Are you guys collecting any data, like as a patient outcome measures? That's something that APTA did try to do at some point, I think. They have a national database registry. I don't know where database was gone, but yeah, is there something there with
I mean, we're not formally collecting any information right now. Anecdotally, I can say that, it's far superior, but there's I'd have to dig through all of my notes and some of that stuff to find some actual numbers on it. I don't think that insurance is ever going to, I think it's just going to continue to take from PTs. I don't think it's ever going to add our ability to bill for other services, especially like preventative and maintenance and that kind of thing, because they can't put a number on, maybe this prehab type stuff prevented an ACL tear, but we can't tell for sure that it did. And so they can't put a number on preventative or maintenance care. And so I don't think they're ever going to pay for it. And, it's just one of those things. I think the more that we encourage the patient to see the value in prevention and health optimization, that's where the focus needs to be, rather than chasing insurance companies that have shown time and time again that they don't care about patients. They don't care about providers. All they care about is lining their own pockets, with good reason. When it comes right down to it, it is a business. I think that's the one thing that patients can take away and remember. It's like, your insurance, it's not going to be there to take care of you when you get hurt. Like, it is not a person who's going to bring you a meal or help you get around or that kind of thing. When it comes right down to it, it is a business, and it is a business run by businessmen and financial people and that kind of thing, not necessarily doctors, healthcare providers, the people who have been in the trenches with patients, seeing the patient experience.
Yeah, I was going to say, I've seen a few folks be really frustrated with on the insurance side, where there's an argument to be made, and I think it's super interesting. Again, the insurance power that be, big insurance, if you want to call them that, probably has way too much power that nothing like this will ever happen. But when the insurance company is dictating, and somebody sitting there who doesn't have any medical training, they have, they have insurance training, but they sometimes I guess I don't want to speak too overly generalized, but yeah, most of the time, from our understanding, as they're not super transparent with everything they do, but most of the time when you speak to whatever company, Aetna or United Healthcare, and you're speaking to an adjuster and they're telling you, hey, Dr. Molly, like your patient is no longer needs your services, so we're not going to pay for any more. That is on the border, if not by definition, practicing medicine without a license.
Yes.
Which is a pretty significant charge. And again, like, I don't know if there would ever, again, I don't think, in our wildest dreams, there'll ever be a class action lawsuit type thing there, but it's something to bring up. And again, for the patient who's unfortunately being moved around like a pawn, if you will, on these concepts, something that they should kind of have an understanding of, I think. And like you said, that they're not interested in your health. No. They're, it's nice to have them, like you said, but it's, they're not the ones who are going to show up and bring you chicken noodle soup.
Yep.
But the other part that leads me to is similarly, and again, I'd be super curious if this is something you have a post of, because I'll admit I haven't looked at every single post. I have reposted a bunch of your stuff, but
that's okay.
But the concept where, and again, I've spoken with a few folks in the corporate space with companies, and I say to them, like, if an ACL surgery or whatever surgery costs you, the company, $50,000, right? And a company of 100 people, let's say, why wouldn't you bring someone like me on to be on call and pay me $100,000? And Absolutely. I would take that any day of the week that I can help avoid 2 surgeries a year, at least. So I'll be worth $100,000. And I'm sure that the significance in productivity that you're getting from, again, having more energy, not worrying about injuries, not losing time because of injuries, all these different things, getting better sleep. And actually, I know my wife's a sex and relationship therapist. One of her people in the space, she goes to a lot of corporations and says, hey, if you're having better sex, you're going to be a more productive employee. And she sells that whole concept. And like, it's literally sexier than what we're trying to talk about of like, hey, I'm going to make your elbow feel better. I'm going to give you better shoulder range of motion. Like, but it's that physical freedom to say, at the end of the day, we're providing this value. So I don't know if, again, there's a way to say, again, an ACL surgery costs, this much lost time. It's a year recovery generally, however much physical therapy that is, that's where, maybe go through the insurance system if you're going through that, because you are going to need however many weeks. And if you can't afford to pay a cash-based PT, whatever that's going to be, again, I went through the ACL reconstruction process and rehab, and luckily it was right after I graduated with my doctorate, my first job, really, that I toured. If anyone wants to see that, it's under YouTube here, ACL Bye-Bye. If you want to type that in, and it's for a grainy footage from 2008, me playing a little pickup football, and pop goes the ACL. Anyway,
Bam.
But do you think is there anything on that corporate side where, again, that's talking more to direct marketing, right? And I do see some of that stuff out in the space, and I'll share the last kind of story before I shut up. Is I actually had an opportunity to do something like that for Philip Morris. Cool. And
maybe not.
No, I was like, well, Philip Morris is a cigarette company, tobacco company. So I'm like, if it work, or ultimately, it kind of feels misaligned with my views. So I kind of ended up not taking that job, partly because they are probably one of the biggest causes of chronic disease in the world. And so I'm like, I'm going to go ahead and avoid that. But, so back to you, is there anything on the corporate side? Do you think you've seen any of that stuff? Are you guys doing any of that within Minnesota?
Yeah, we're working on it. We work with a couple of corporations as far as creating kind of custom wellness solutions. One of the things that I'm most excited about right now is with my athletic training background, I just developed a novel concussion protocol for Canterbury Park and Running Aces, which is a thoroughbred racing and a harness racing tracks in Minnesota for their jockeys, because up until now, there has been no requirement for any type of concussion protocol for those athletes. even though they are arguably at the highest risk that I can imagine. You know, they're going 40 miles an hour. Their head is 9 feet off the ground. There are a dozen other animals around them, and all of that. So that is super interesting and exciting. And I am excited to watch that program expand. But I mean, right there, that is a huge protective mechanism for the company. Because if we are catching even just a few concussions a year, that is taking somebody who is not safe to be riding and putting everybody else at risk. We're eliminating or greatly reducing a lot of that risk for the company. So, you know, can you put a number on that? Not yet, but that is something that we are hoping to do. We're going to be collecting some data this year. As far as the rest of kind of the corporate world goes, I think PTs are perfectly positioned to take a new kind of C-suite position, a chief wellness officer within a company. You know, imagine if a big company had somebody like that at the top who is in charge of creating custom wellness programs for those employees based on what their personal needs are. Right there is a huge reduction in overall healthcare expenditures. And then that person is also in a great position to help figure out what insurance options they may need for their employees, and then counseling those employees on which one might be the best fit for them. You know, and if it's a small company, maybe they do some PT right there. Maybe they help with some dietary counseling and that kind of thing. Or maybe it's much larger and more global as well, depending on the size of the company. Maybe it's a little bit less hands-on touching patients on a regular basis. But right there, I think that is a huge value add for some of these companies. You know, keeps your people healthy, keeps them happy. It makes them feel cared for by their employer. And I think that could be a total game changer moving forward into these times where people are more focused on preventative health and health optimization.
For sure. I love that. Yeah, I'm curious to see, if I can play a role in some of those things. But I guess, and that leads me to another hopefully fun question. If you have like 2 or 3, probably we can say non-traditional tests that either you guys are already doing or you think that almost everyone should kind of go through, whether it's something like the FMS, functional movement screen. Right now, again, most people, when we ask them about fitness or wellness or health, they're like, well, my blood pressure is this, and my cholesterol is this, and my resting heart rate, maybe if they're a little fancier, is that. And I saw you had the Apple Watch, I think. I use the Whoop here, which has a little toothpaste on it, I guess. I just noticed. But yeah, is there any, I don't know if you have like 2 or 3 top tests that you would recommend. Again, most people, I have a few in my mind. I just wanted to see where we lined up maybe on that. But that, again, most people probably either wouldn't know to do unless they saw someone like you or I. And yeah, did you have like 3? Let's pick top 3 if you dare.
Okay. Well, we have a movement screen that we do here that is a combination of, there's a couple of FMS moves on there. There's some SFMA, and then there's some, you know, just general movement tests that we do, and we can add in some sport specific things, especially for some of like our overhead athletes, because we work with a lot of them. And so I think that is an awesome thing that everybody should be doing. It just checks out your overall range of motion, strength, stability, preferred movement patterns throughout your entire body, and it can be administered in less than 10 minutes. And it's something that it would be great if we could add that into like
your annual
athlete,
physical
your annual physical or your student athlete physical that you need before. I don't know if it's like that in Colorado, but in Minnesota you have to get a physical if you're going to participate in high school athletics. And you know, when I remember participating in athletics, all they did to check your orthopedic, your entire body is a patellar tendon reflex and a duck walk, which I'm like, what in the heck is that going to show you? And in all reality, the vast majority of young athletes and healthy people their risk of having an issue is going to be orthopedically related. So
Right.
why don't we spend a little bit more time diving into that and looking for movement patterns or anything like that that could indicate a risk for injury, and then actually addressing it. But knowledge is power. First, helping people to see those problems, and then putting some of that control back in their hands as far as what they do with that information, I think is really important and really key. And we have all of our athletes and our clients here do that movement screen on a yearly basis at a minimum. And so it's fun to see how things progress and change the longer that they're with us. Or as they're growing. We're dealing with a lot of growing athletes and how that alters things as well. But it's fun to kind of give them that timeline of, this is working kind of thing.
For sure. So that's only one thing, really.
That's only one thing.
Do you have,
true.
Technically, I mean, if that definitely covers it. And again, I have a similar concept. I call it my 21-point checkup. Like you go to the car mechanic and they give you the 60-point inspection. So yeah, for me, the other part is like the primal movement patterns, which I'm sure you guys kind of probably like you alluded to. Yep. There's 7 movement patterns that every body kind of can do. And usually people are really bad at hinging. It's just something that's not really taught. And so stuff like that. But yeah, are there maybe 2 other like big picture tests that folks can go do like right now?
Well, I think another thing that, this is slightly outside of PT, but just like a nutrition assessment, like once a year, I think that would be huge. It's like, okay, track your intake for a week, check in with a dietitian. Not everybody needs a huge, meal plan or anything like that, but it's like, okay, let's make sure that we're getting enough fuel. Because a lot of people are under fueling in this world, and that's leading to a lot of chronic issues. You're getting enough micronutrients, all of that good stuff, because what you put in your body is just as important as what you do with it. And there's a lot of misinformation out there when it comes to nutrition, and it's, keto's going to fix everything and all of that stuff. So having something that's a little bit more personalized and making sure that what you're putting in your body is optimizing everything that you do with it, I think is absolutely key. And that's, that's not, there's so many great resources out there these days that can make that very, very easy and convenient for a client.
Yeah, for sure. My only, I guess, pushback on that is you can definitely end up going to somebody who doesn't know what the heck they're talking about, or is pushing something that isn't really going to solve the issues and isn't looking at the underlying stuff going on. So if it's less holistic, and I don't know, again, maybe you have a better answer of how do we, if you have someone who you trust, and like you mentioned earlier, that's phenomenal to have that referral source. But if you're just somebody looking for this golden whatever coin in this sea of Google and WebMD and who do I go to, and people ask me too about registered dietitians, and I say I can't generalize and say a registered dietitian is your best bet, or a nutritionist, because there's so many different certifications. I do like the precision nutrition concept. So if somebody has that behind them, at least they probably have a little bit more of a holistic view again, where it's talking about actual eating habits. It's not about creating meal plans. It's things like that. So I do think I 100% agree that we should be having some version of that, but I think we're very far from any kind of standardization, or at least, yeah. And I've just heard so many horror stories of they're doing the same cookie cutter thing for everybody, or, I don't want to be too negative. We've already been negative.
No, I totally get where you're coming from with that kind of thing. And I think it's very difficult to standardize that across the board, but I think it's a good starting point for a lot of people is to just start networking with nutrition experts, whether that's, somebody with a certification, a registered dietitian, whatever, who shares the same values that you have when it comes to healthcare. And then who also has experience with the kind of patients that you see. Right. That is absolutely key. Dietitians are great, but not every dietitian knows how to work with athletes.
Yeah.
And so that's, a key thing is finding, and, it can take some time, and it's, you are going to struggle sometimes to find somebody who works with you, but it's just one of those things. Put some feelers out there, and I think it can be hugely helpful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm going to push you for that third one. We covered
one.
2. You have your kind of movement screen, whatever version that is.
Yep.
And then you have your nutritional assessment, which is phenomenal. And then, is there a third test? I'll tell you the where I'm coming from a little bit, since I put you on the spot a little.
No,
is something
okay.
like the Cooper test. If you're familiar, the listeners aren't familiar, is it's a 12 minutes. How far can you go? How far can you run? That's it. And there's standardization out there. There's numbers you can look at, things like that. So to me, like, that's a really cool thing to get somebody to care about more than their cholesterol. Not that we should just totally ignore cholesterol, but there's different conversations and nuances that we can go down that path. But something like the Cooper test or your grip strength, because those have been shown to significantly correlate to longevity and quality of life. Or again, leg strength is something that, again, has been shown to correlate to that. Because again, if you fall down, can you get back up as we get older? So, and building that in your 20s, 30s, 40s is going to give you that physical retirement into your 70s and 80s, where, and beyond. At this point, I mean, the goal, I think, is to be 120 still running around, hopefully. But so I don't know if you have a third. Yeah, I don't know if you have a third, whatever, if we want to call it a vital sign.
Yeah, for sure. So with some of my, especially like with my active adults, something I'll do with them is like a 3-minute step up test. We find a box that is about as high as their like tibial
Kneecap
plateau.
Okay, yeah.
And then for 3 minutes, we are doing step ups, alternating legs. And then we check their heart rate immediately after. And then after 5 minutes of recovery there, and also counting how many step ups did they get, and then getting some subjective information from them after the fact, because that's testing leg strength, which, as you said, is huge for overall function, especially as we're getting older. We are testing our cardiovascular, our heart rate recovery, all of that good stuff. And then it's also a great way to watch their mechanics, especially as they fatigue, because that's where injury is going to occur, especially with some of those hip, knee, ankle type issues. ACL is scary for everybody, no matter how aged you are, how old you are. But kind of watching what happens with their mechanics as they fatigue. And then you can keep track of those metrics from year to year or decade to decade, and see, are we able to maintain or even improve this as we get older? Because sometimes as we get older, just maintaining is a huge deal. But yeah, I love a test like that for just overall fitness and function.
Perfect. I love that. And there is a workout in the CrossFit space I think it's called Prison Yard, because all you need is that box, and it's actually 15 minutes of how many step ups can you do. And
15 minutes is great, but that takes a lot of time in the clinic. And some of my clients, even the pretty fit ones, especially some of my active adults, might not make it that long.
Yeah. That's one of those, though. If you have a pretty competitive person, and they're ready to be sore, also, because if you haven't done that many step ups, but for somebody who's into, I'm out here in Colorado, a lot of people do these 14ers and hiking and things like that. And some people are going to do that with. There was also like these hero workouts in CrossFit that you do it with a vest on and 20 pounds or 30 pounds. And again, there's some ways you can actually properly progress that and train to expose folks to that, so that they are getting better at hiking. And if I've gotten the pleasure to work with some folks that have gone up on Everest and done some hiking in Antarctica and all these different things, and help and see them train. And if they're just on a stepper for 4 hours watching 2 or 3 Netflix shows or movies, I jumped on. We had one in New York. It was like a very interesting setup, and we would have that, and I'd jump on there for like an hour, and I'm like, okay, enjoy the next 4 hours of your life, like, on here. But it is what it is. Of some interesting ways of, again, that what are they training for? But I love that test. And again, it's even at 3 minutes is giving us a lot of good information.
Mm-hmm.
And I really like that you're adding in those like data points of movement, breakdown, if you will. And yeah, the Cooper test also tends to look at, I think the proper way to do it is how much does your heart rate recover after 1 minute and then 2 minutes. And there's, numbers that we're looking for there. So very cool. Yeah, I want to be respectful of your time and coming up on the hour. And is there anything else that we haven't covered that you wanted to on some of these topics that I'm missing?
I don't think so. I think we've covered a lot of it, unless you have anything else. Covered a lot of stuff in almost an hour.
Yeah.
Solved all the world's problems.
Yeah, there you go.
Like that.
That's always my fun joke there for sure. Yeah, very cool. So one more time, let people know where they can find you online.
Yeah. So our clinic is called Inspired Athletics. Athletics is spelled ATHLETX. So you can find us on all the socials there. If you're a rehab professional or any other kind of healthcare professional, definitely check us out at FreeMVMT, FreeMVMT, and we're most active on Instagram and Facebook with that. And then I always love connecting on my personal Facebook page with other PTs and other rehab and healthcare professionals. And I'm just Molly King, MOLLYKING. So I look forward to connecting with some of you, and thank you for having me on. This has been really fun.
Thank you for being here. And yeah, I really appreciate it. Again, one more time, if you guys like the conversation, don't forget to share with someone you think will benefit from it. Any clinicians in the insurance space, that's actually, I think, one of the biggest targets. As much as we need to market directly to patients, that might be the slow grassroots approach, I guess, but also people who are in cash-based practices on the insurance side, the insurance-based practices in the PT space. I think those are folks that we need to make sure that either they're elevating their game there or pushing back with insurance companies. Because that was why I asked the question about, can we get to some insurance folks or which again, that's probably less likely. Versus, trying to really make some change to those insurance-based models, which are going to have to change because, again, reimbursement is just going down. So, it's going to be a mother or necessity is the mother of invention. So they'll eventually have to catch up to hopefully what some folks are doing now in terms of that cash-based space. So anyway, but yeah, guys, if you liked it, share it with someone who you think will benefit from this conversation. Again, subscribe, like, share. Comment, ask questions, send them directly to Molly or me. And other than that, we'll see you guys next time. Hope you got 1% better today. And you can